Hello, good morning. This video being sent to you is about how these monster changes have affected Hystria and showing you how I have been clearing the rooms, giving feedback on the rooms, letting you know what it used to be like before the patch in my perspective, how it is now, and some small touches in most spots and some bigger touches in other spots that I think would be necessary to bring this current version of Hystria with the reduced mobs to the version of Hystria that we used to have, that PC currently has. Because it has, even with the respawn rates that definitely has helped, it has been nerfed slightly in every single room across the board. Now, all the rooms are very similar from my testing in terms of trash numbers. So an easier fix might be just increasing the price of the trash, which I honestly wouldn't be happy with, because obviously it's not just about the value of the trash, because you need to also take into consideration the drops that come with, if you're getting more trash from Hystria, that means you're clearing more mobs. If you're clearing more mobs, that also means there's more items dropping, whether that be scrolls, backstones, black shards, red shards, tongue rednecks, and other bits and bobs, black magic crystals that can drop here as well. So I can see why it'd be easy to change trash values to bring Hystria from where it is now to where it was before. But honestly, with some very few changes to the rooms in terms of shaving off a few mobs from one area and adding a few mobs somewhere else, I'm pretty sure that it can be very similar to what it used to be. But obviously this is in perspective of a wizard with quite a lot of gear, and I'll show you guys my gear in just a second so you can have a perspective of that as well. And also, it's quite important just to let you know, this video that I'm sending you is also going to be posted on my YouTube channel for my subscribers to see. And just quick message to my subscribers, if there's anything you guys want to relay to the devs in terms of how you think Hystria is being affected, I'm just trying to keep this video relative to Hystria, and if there's any performance changes for you, just drop it down in the comments below. And devs, I'll leave you a link to my YouTube as well, so if you do want to see any of these comments, hopefully there will be some, you can see that as well. So in terms of my gear, I'm 268, 270 Kudum. And in terms of buffs I've been using, it's Spirit Perfume Elixir, Elixir of Concentration, Elixir of Frenzy, Elixir of Draining, and Elixir of Assassination with a tent buff. Obviously with the new changes, I don't need this villain rotation anymore, so that's actually pretty good. Appreciate that. This is all the same. I haven't had gains for a long time. All the numbers I'm going to be giving you, I've been using the same buffs, and I've had the same gear on my wizards, so that part's the same. The only difference is I've obviously spreadsheeted this new data, which I'm also be sending you in a separate link, and I'll be showing the spreadsheet in the rooms as well, so we can talk about it directly. I didn't spreadsheet it before, but I've been down in Hystria for months, like, I don't know, at least 4 months. I am very aware of the trash I used to get, and it's very consistent as well. So I will be going through that, and I'll see you guys in the first room, which I think is going to be the easiest room in terms of just small changes to take it back to what it used to be, and I'll see you guys there in a second. So here we are in the first room I'm going to be talking about today. This room is actually done the best in comparison to the other ones. It's almost as good as it used to be with the changes in the respawn rates, but it's just slightly underperforming. I'll go through the numbers and show you the spreadsheet in just a minute. First, I'm going to show you how I cleared this room. Now, please keep in mind, I have tried multiple different ways of clearing all these rooms that I'm showing you, and this version of how I'm clearing it is what I found to be most efficient. I do understand that maybe there is a better way that the rooms can be pulled to get better trash. And I also understand that people that are making these changes probably had a optimal rotation in mind. So when seeing this video, if you believe that my rotation is not optimal, please let me know. Just be like, when you respond, or hopefully if you respond, just say Black Shard room. So this room here is I refer to as Black Shard room or Kalkisha room. Just be Black Shard room. Room is not optimal in terms of pulling, and then obviously if you could send me a video file of how you guys think it should be pulled, then that would be helpful. But if not, just try to explain to me as best you can in words how you'd pull differently. But I'm pretty confident that these pulls I have is as efficient as you can be with my AP. And before we get started, I am very much aware that I have a lot more gear than the average person on Xbox. Even the average person in history on Xbox, I have a lot more gear than them. So I do understand I'm coming from that angle. But it's also important to note the longer this game is out, the more people are going to be catching up to me. And Wizard with this kind of gear, it just does not perform the same in history as other mobs would with the current gear that I have. Just to give you a quick example, I've played other classes. I had a Musar not so long ago, and my Musar that was full tech weapons with everything else being the same as you see here. I think the helmet was different, but all the accessories were the same. So I know I've got a Pen Bassi, but you know, instead of Pen Bassi, if this was Tet Bassi and this was a Tet Witches, it'd be pretty much exactly the same AP. Be like a 1 AP difference. And that full Tet Musar was pulling the same as my full Pen Wizard. So even though I am coming to you with a lot of gear, other classes do perform better at slightly lower gears that I'm currently at. And after you guys obviously release Caphras, and as the game matures, people will be reaching the ability to clear Hystria at my speeds at a decent pace, I believe, especially the people that are currently in Hystria. So after all that's been said, let's show you guys how I clear this room. So I come up and I take these 2 Demos. I'll come over here. So I'll grab as many mobs as I can. Now I'm just going to be a bit slower than normally. So as you can see here, we can't grab any more. There's usually just 2 guys left over. Now, I'll clear these guys out. And after those guys are done, I'll just take the aggro of these 2, come up here, and clear the mobs out by the Elten. Also keep in mind, I'm not fully buffed, so my clear speed is a little bit higher when we're talking about the spreadsheets that's going to be coming up. And then after that, we'll come down here. We'll grab these mobs. Have to wait for this Kalkisha a little bit. Bring it behind this Kalkisha. Also, I'd be putting the mobs a lot more efficiently than I am now. Usually I'd teleport to roughly where I'm standing here and then grab the mobs above me, so I'm not waiting for them to come down. So this is just how I group the mobs. But it's definitely not as efficient as I would be when I did my tests. Anyway, so finally these 3, I'll take them, I'll bring them up here, and I'll group it with the top mob over there. So this is basically how I clear Hystria, and even when I am fully buffed and grinding, Hystria, Black Shard room. Even when I am fully buffed and I'm grinding this rotation as efficiently as I can be, I still don't overclear, but I do come close. There has been a couple times when I've been really as optimal as I can be. I can see these guys respawning as I'm running to them. So the numbers I'm giving are pretty close to being the maximum numbers that you can get for clearing this room. And I'm going to go through those in just a second. So this is the spreadsheet I have also sent to you guys. Key information here, so I'll quickly go through it in the video so we're all up to date in case you haven't looked at the spreadsheet yet. I use an item drop rate in everything that I'm going to be talking about. All the tests were done on Arsha, on this wizard with the body enhancement Villa buff and the Count Sylvia blessing. The elixirs I've already gone through that I used, and the food buffs is basically the King Jungle Hamburg, the Serendia meal, and the Count Sylvia meal. I do have my Bartali complete, all books. All my pets are tier 4, they were all set on Agile, and as you can see, there was 1 Arctic Fox and 4 Dragons. And all of this is exactly the same as it was prior when I'm talking about these numbers that I used to get and what I'm getting now. They were exactly the same. So, Black Shard Room, this is the... like, if you want to have an in-depth look at everything, you can have a look at all the stuff underneath. I haven't done silver values for these, so this is not a money per hour test. This is more a trash per hour test, because I understand RNG being RNG. 5 hours is just not enough to get a good understanding, and I also didn't keep track of these items before, so I can't really give a comparison for anything down here. But it might be, if it is useful for you guys, then have a look at it. But what I can compare directly is these trash numbers up here. So what we can see here, it's pretty consistently that you're going to usually get between 27,000 and 2,700 and 2,800 trash per hour. The average is 2,734, which isn't that bad. Now, the Black Shard Room in the past, obviously the reason it's called the Black Shard Room or the Kalkisha Room is because there's a good concentration of Kalkishas, which this room still has. And that is the main draw in the past of you coming to this room, because you actually got just a tiny little bit less trash in this room than you used to in other rooms. But to compensate, it was like, well, you get more chances of getting black shards. So before, I used to get roughly 2,900 trash. It was almost always 2,900 and change. Sometimes it was 2,800. And I think it was like a couple of occasions I hit 3,000, but it was pretty much 2,900 on the dot. Not on the dot, but like in the 2,900 area, like 2,900 and change, almost every single time I came here, which is slightly lower than the other rooms that we'll be talking about later on when we get there. So it's only about 200 trash nerf, which really isn't that much, but with what is very different now compared to what it used to be is the Eltens. So I'm gonna go back to the stream footage. So now that we're back over here, before there used to be 3 Eltens in this room. Now there's 1. So in my opinion, 1 Elten needs to go back into this room. And I'll go through exactly why I think that would be very fair to do. Now, in the past, this room was split into 6 pools, and in those 6 pools, 3 of them were Eltens. But with my AP, obviously I overcleared this room, so I had to go into this adjacent room in front of me, which I call the 3 Tanko room. And in that room, I'd also have to kill another Elten before I could come back into this room and continue clearing. And there was 2 more pools between here and there. So there was 6 pools in total over here with 3 Eltens, 2 pools over there with 1 Elten. So that's 8 pools with 4 Eltens. Now currently, the way it's working out is I'm basically clearing this room twice compared to the old rotation, where one rotation was 8 pools. This rotation is 4 pools, but I'm obviously doing it twice as fast. So now there's 1 Elten. So if you were to double it, it'd be 1 Elten 4 pools. So now for every 8 mobs, we're only killing 2 Eltens, which is a pretty significant nerf in terms of the compass part, which is going to be very important to everybody that comes down here. I think I only know 1 person that has the compass in EU Xbox. And the Tongrad necklaces. As you can see with these changes that you've done, Tongrad necklaces used to sit on the market, and Tongrad earrings used to sit on the market, whereas now they're completely sold out. Completely sold out here. And earrings completely, well, maybe there's 1 earring now. Okay, there's 5 earrings now, but it never used to be a situations where earrings would sell out overnight. So this meant that earrings, obviously, like, there's demand and supply. I understand, well, okay, if you're getting slightly less tongue rad necklaces and earrings, the prices go up, so the value of that is more. So maybe you can argue the fact that there's more money, but end of the day, just in terms of economy, there's less items available. This is punishing people that aren't in these grind zones more. So yeah, you might be, technically, you can say you're rewarding people grinding Hystria by reducing these items. You're increasing the price, so when these items drop, actually, if you average it out, they're getting more money. I can understand that argument if you were to give it to me. I do study economy, but it's just not good for the general player. So anybody else that wants to buy these items, now they're more expensive. It's harder for them to access. It's harder for those players to reach soft cap. And I just don't think it's fair for everyone else. Whereas before, like, first of all, there was just more people grinding Hystria. There's a lot of people that just don't want to grind here anymore with these current changes. I've definitely noticed that when I've been, because before in Arsha, I was always having to fight for my spot. Now it's pretty much free whenever I go to Arsha. There's only a very select handful of people there. Anyway, I'm digressing a little bit. So going back to the Eltens, if you were to add another Elten into this room, and I'll show you where I'd like to see it added, then it would be 2 Eltens in the rotation, and it will be 4 Eltens in 2 rotations. So out of 8 mobs, you'll be killing 4 Eltens. In the past, as we were discussing, it was 4 Eltens in 7 mobs. So technically it was killing, it's still not as good as it used to be, but actually, if just looking at the numbers, however, it really is roughly going to be the same, because obviously in the past, I had to do this extra travel distance to get from this room to the adjacent room. So taking this travel distance out pretty much will make it, the Eltens per hour, almost exactly the same in my opinion. It'll be hard to say without doing actual time testing of Eltens killed per hour, which I never used to do in the past, so I can't do a direct comparison. I can just tell you guys the number of Eltens in the mobs I used to kill before compared to what it is now. So now that that's out of the way, other very small changes to bring this room to 2900. You only really need to add 2 mobs in my opinion, and plus the Elten. If you feel like that would be too much, that would be giving it too much of a buff, please add the Elten at the very minimum and 1 mob, and it's very easy which mob to add. So it's pretty much in this first pool right here. If you were just to add, so not the first pool, the second pool, but I need to get rid of this first pool to show you. So I'll fast forward this bit. So in my opinion, if you were just to add these 2 Kalkishas back up here, plus 1 Elten, which I'll go through which Eltens add in just a minute, this room should pretty much be clearing at 2900 trash, exactly as it was before, around that number. Because as you can see, we can pull 2 more mobs. So we can pull 2 more mobs from over there. Even if I didn't place that lighthouse down, it wouldn't have changed. So it's this pack here is 2 mobs shy of being full. So that's why it's pretty easy. If you just add the 2 mobs here, it would, in my opinion, fix the issue. And I'll cut to which Elten I'd like to see added back in terms of how I'm pulling this room currently. And then we can talk about some mobs that can be shaved off as well. So in terms of mobs to shave off, this Bolton over here can easily be get rid of. We don't need this Bolton. And this Elten over here, like these 2 mobs, if you were just to shave these 2 mobs, like they're completely useless. I've tried clearing the room, including the Bolton. I was just getting significantly less trash per hour. So I'll get rid of these 2, and then I'll show you talk about the Elten. That needs to be added. So I think if you were just to add back this Elten that used to be here, that would be the best one to add back, because as you can see, that mob can easily get dragged down here without de-aggroing. The aggro range is far enough for it to come all the way down. So if you were to add this Elten back here and those 2 Kalkishas, in my opinion, this room would be exactly as it was before in terms, well, I'll say exactly, it'd be a lot closer representation to what it used to be before these changes to the mobs. You could even add the Elten back up here, and that would also work. Well, but it would be an issue. So if you were to add this Elten back up here, obviously you're adding one more mob, which is one less mob that we pulled from this rotation, which then means if you were to add 2 Kalkishas up here, there'll be 1 extra mob here that can't be pulled. For a wizard, it's not a problem, or a Sork. Wizard and Sork, like, we have obviously the lighthouse, so we'd be able to pull all the mobs, but other classes that don't have this luxury won't be able to do that. So yes, the Elten up here can be returned instead of the one that I mentioned before, but then if you were to make both the changes, the first change of adding those 2 Kalkishas won't be as beneficial for all classes, whereas the first Elten I talked about would be beneficial for all classes. So the next room we're going to talk about is this room right here, the 3 tanko room, and I'll cut and I'll show you guys how I clear the room in just a second. So, I'm starting to clear just over here. And I'll show you guys how I go about clearing this room. And honestly, I don't think this room needs that many changes to make it better than it currently is. But I'm going to talk about 2 after I show you the pool and I show you guys, I show you guys the numbers that I used to pull, that I pull now, and I compare it to the numbers I used to pull. I'll tell you guys, like, small changes that can be made if you don't want to change this room too much. That would make it better. But then I honestly think if you were to do a slight readjustment of basically taking one of these packs out and adding another one, it would actually be a lot closer to the Black Shard room. Because I think even with the changes that I'm going to give you the first time round, where it's going to be only small touches here and there, because of how big this room is, it's always going to pull just a little bit less than the tanko / Black Shard room that we just talked about. Whereas the second changes should make the room easier to rotate, meaning that it should get more similar numbers to what we were talking about in the Black Shard room. Okay, so let's talk about some numbers. I'll pull up the spreadsheet. So as you can see, we're in the 3 tanko room, and this is the trash per hour that we're getting in this room. We are averaging around 2,660 trash, so just below 2,700 trash in this room. And the reason you can see some jumps is, I'll show you in a minute. In one of the pools, there is a problem right now with one of these pools. You might have picked up on it when watching what I was doing, but that is why you can get good numbers in this room, and you can also get pretty bad numbers in this room depending on one of these pools, how it turns out. A lot of the times, doesn't matter how good you are at pulling, it can just end up not pulling the way you want it to. Anyway, so this is the trash that I'm getting now. In the past, this was a 2,900 to 3,000 trash room. I was more in the high 2,900s in the past. I did hit 3,000 trash quite often, but I'd say most of the time it was close to 3,000. And when I did hit 3,000 trash, it wasn't on the highest spectrum of the 3,000, it was on the lower spectrum. So again, over here, it's about 200, maybe 300 trash nerf to what it used to be. So in terms of bringing this room back up, to how it used to perform in the past in terms of number of mobs cleared that translates to trash. Let's talk about the small touches that can be made first, and then we'll talk about the big touches a bit later. So small touches, over here there's one missing mob, so there used to be a Kalkisha down here. So if you want to keep this room relatively the same, if you were to add this Kalkisha back down here, that would help a lot. All these other ones are at max capacity, so you can't really change anything else. The only thing you can change in small touches would be to get rid of this tutu car. This tutu car causes a problem. This pool right here has two issues. Issue number one, let me try and keep the Elten over there real quick. So issue number one, so I'll show you when we aggro everything. So the first issue is there's one mob that you're just not going to be able to aggro, right? There's one too many mobs in this pack. The second issue is, well, this guy came down a little bit, so maybe it's not going to happen now. But no, it's still happening. So as you can see, if you were to bring everything to this Elten, it doesn't even matter that there's too many mobs. Those guys, those two cars over there, just don't have the aggro distance to be able to reach this Elten. So, just as an easy change, instead of these three demols over here, add back the demols that used to be here. I think there was three. There might have been two, so you might have to add back two demols of one of the Kalkishas, because there's definitely some two Kalkishas at least missing from this section here. So that would be an easy change, and get rid of this little tutu car right here, that little scrawny thing. Try and separate it. So this guy here, the scrawny useless mob, get rid of him. Get rid of three of the demols over here. Add back either three demols over here if there used to be three demols, or two demols and a Kalkisha. And that should pretty much fix this room, because the aggro range should be more than enough for them to come to this Elten and you to clear it out. That should fix this room. Well, it won't even fix the room, but it will definitely make the room a bit more streamlined. But I still believe that it will not be as good as the Black Shard room, which currently still isn't as good as the Black Shard room because of the size of the pools. So now I'm going to go back and talk about the changes I would personally like to see, which I think it would shorten this room a little bit and allow you to pull the same as the Black Shard room. Okay, so for the bigger changes that I think would help make this this rotation as good as it used to be and make it comparable to the Black Shard room that we just looked at, is get rid of this pack completely. Now, if I understand one of the reasons you haven't got rid of all the packs that you can't grind, is because you don't want to see the place to seem empty. So if you want, you can keep the stuff that's down here, the Bolton and the two the two demols, but do get rid of you have to get rid of these two Kalkishas up here, because it will affect the pools otherwise if you don't get rid of them. So if you were to get rid of this pack completely, it will shorten the room. So instead of having to run all the way down here, aggro everything, come all the way down here far away from all the other mobs, clear these guys out, and then come all the way back up and then go to your next mob, you'd be cutting this out. So you'd be going directly from there that way. So that should in itself make this room slightly faster to rotate, which should in turn increase the trash per hour. But obviously we're going to have to add back a mob, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So after you guys get rid of that, keep this exactly the same. This does not need to change. Now, in this next section here, get rid of the Elten. So this is the big changes. This is like pretty much changing the room almost completely. Just get rid of this Elten, and I would like to see this Tutagar get changed for maybe a Kalkisha, but that's just, that's personal preference. If we're just talking about trash numbers, just get rid of the Elten. And then for the next section here, make these two sections exactly the same as it used to be. So bring back the Elten and all the mobs that used to be here. And then add back all the mobs that used to be down here as well. So take this back, like this section here, keep it untouched. Keep it exactly the same as it used to be in the past. So you've got two Eltens and both these pools will be at max capacity. So what would happen here is you would shorten the room and you'd make the pools more dense. Right now, 3 of the 4 pools are at max capacity. So this pool currently is at max capacity with no changes. The Elten before it was actually 1 over max capacity as we showed you. And then the 2 Tankos on the opposite side of this wall, that pool is also at max capacity. The problem is 1, is the length of the pool, and 2, this is really, I think this needs what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is like 4 mobs. I think it's 10 mobs if I remember correctly. I don't really count max capacity. I just pull them up to see what it is. But there's only 6 mobs here, and it's definitely below max capacity. So this is one of the issues of why it doesn't make as much trash as the Black Shard room, and why it's really lackluster in trash compared to what it used to be. And the other issue is the length of the room. So if you were to cut at least these 2 calculations here and make the second, I would personally like to see the second changes. I think that would be the best way of bringing this room back to its old status. You would have 4 pools at max capacity, and the rotation will be shortened for you to be able to make that little bit more trash per hour to bring it more around the 2,900 to 3,000 trash area. Now let's get to the next room. So here we are at the 4 Elten rotation. I'll show you guys. I'm going to be a bit different in this room because it's slightly more complicated than the 2 previous rooms that isn't that hard to bring back. So obviously I understand what you've tried to do in this room, because you don't have 4 full max capacity mobs. You can break this room down into 4 pools, which has been the most profitable way I've seen of pulling the room. You can also make it into 3 pools, which I'm not going to show because it's not been as efficient as the 4 pool method. However, just a key note, the 3 pool method actually overclears, the 4 pool method doesn't. But the reason I'm getting more trash by breaking this room down into 4 separate pools is because when you do the 3 pool method, there's just a few mobs that get left behind, and some of the pools are a bit janky and you have to wait a bit longer. So even though the 3 pool method overclears the room, you're not clearing every mob in the room. So the trash per hour goes down because of that. I've also tried adding an extension, but it's just, again, just doing the 4 pool method instead of doing 3 pools in that room and then coming into this room and doing 1 pool in this room has been more profitable. But I'll show you guys the spreadsheet in just a second. So here we go. Here are the numbers for the 4 Elten. These 2 here, as you can see in the notes, is 4 pools. So in the 4 pools, we're getting around 2,700 trash. We got high trash there for 2,760, so it's in the highest spectrum of the 600s, and then the lower spectrum of the 700s here. This pool is a 3 pools, and I changed my rotation twice. This has not been included in this average. And then these 2 pools here is me doing the 3 pool method. So as you can see in the comments, this is the 3 pool method right here, which is just slightly less than the 4 pools. So in my opinion, the 4 pools is the better way to go, and it's going to be around 2,700 trash that you're getting. So it's pretty similar to the Black Shard rotation. So honestly, it doesn't need that many changes. I'll go into what I think would bring this to... I didn't talk about what I used to get. So this was the highest trash per hour room that I used to get in the past. In the past, this was a solid 3,000 trash per hour room. Once in a blue moon, I used to hit 3,100. Every now and again, I'd get 2,900. But I grinded this room more than any other room in the past, and it was almost always 3,000 trash per hour. So it is still roughly a 300 trash nerf for this room. Now, in terms of how I broke down these 4 pools is what I'm going to be showing you now. So we'll still talk about these pools whilst I'm pulling it. The very first time you come in this room, you can actually aggro the mobs from the other Elten. Bring it over here to slightly increase your final trash by like 20-30, but you can only do that on the very first rotation around. After that, these two will be separate because of just how the respawns are working out. And then the very first time you pull, this Elten's going to be here. But after the first time when you got high APs, you'll be clearing fast enough for all the other mobs but the Elten to be there when you come here. So you can pull all the other mobs, and there won't be an Elten coming down here shooting you in the back whilst you're clearing this room as well. Oh, this room, this pack. And then you just be clearing these guys out like so. And then finally you'll take the, there's usually just one mob left over and you bring it over here. And this is how I cleared. This is the most efficient way that I have cleared 7 Eltens to get roughly 2,700 trash per hour. So honestly, I don't think this room needs a lot of changes. If you were just to add back all the mobs that used to be here, minus the Elten, I'm pretty sure that this room would be just as good as it used to be before. Because what, there used to be, I think, a Kalkisha and 2 Demols down there. And I think there used to be another Kalkisha somewhere as well. Oh yeah, there used to be a Kalkisha over here. So if you just add back, if you just add back that Kalkisha that used to be roughly right where I'm standing right here, then this room should be pulling around 3,000 trash per hour again. I'm pretty sure. Because you'd be adding, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 more mobs. It still won't take all these to max capacity, and honestly you shouldn't, because if you were to, this is a very small room, so if you did 4 pulls at max capacity, you'd probably be pulling some crazy numbers in this room. I mean, you could if you want to. I got no problems with you buffing Hystria or buffing that room, but it wouldn't be comparable to the other rooms. So everyone would be fighting to be in the 4 Elten room if you did do that. So if you just add back the first mob and the 1 Kalkisha that I mentioned, I think this room would go back to being around the 3,000 trash per hour mark. Now, this room I didn't test, and I'm not going to test it. You need to add the 2 Eltens back in this room. Even if it's not here, just there needs to be 2 Eltens in this room somewhere. This room looks like it's got some good densities and you can pull some good numbers, but anyone that knows Hystria isn't going to take this room seriously because there's no Eltens in it. Like, the only reason you'd be grinding a room with no Eltens if there was a lot of tankers. Let's say there was 6 tankers in this room. Like, yeah, okay, maybe you would then grind it, but there's only 1 tanko as well. So you've got no Eltens in this room, and you've only got 1 tanko. You could probably get some decent trash in this room, but the quality of the room with no Eltens is just not good enough. So if you want people to clear this room, and if you want me to test this room and come back to you, add 2 Eltens in this room. If you don't add 2 Eltens in this room, then it's just not even worth having the conversation. Alright, I'm going to see you guys on the other side of the map now. I'll see you in a second. And just a quick note, I'm going to cut here, this is not a pull. Just get rid of more mobs in these random zones. You can't make a pull out of this. I've tried, it just doesn't work. Like, if you want the performance to better, if there's a mob issue, like maybe you don't want it to seem empty, right? I get that. So maybe just get rid of like 2 Demols here, stuff like that, right? Get rid of like that Demol down there. Get rid of a couple extra mobs. If you guys are serious that you've reduced the mobs to increase our performance, then please get rid of the mobs in these areas. Like, this is not a good pool. It's just, you can't make anything out of these random areas that nobody grinds. Since you can't make anything, I don't know why they're here. Like, just cut some more stuff. No one even walks here either. Like barely anyone's gonna walk past these rooms. I get that you don't want to feel empty, but like, there's 4 demos over here. Get rid of 2 of them. Cut some stuff from this rooms, because if that really does increase performance, then that's fine. Get rid of it from, like, get rid of one of these demos over here. So there's still mobs there, so it doesn't look empty, but it's just not as, it's pretty, these are just all useless. You can't make anything good. You can't make a good rotation out of these mobs over here. Anyway, I'll see you guys back in a second. Okay, so we're inside, and probably as you've noticed if you've been looking at the spreadsheet closely, I don't have anything for side. Because honestly, you've gutted it way too much. It's too spread out, and there's now only 1 Elten instead of the 3 that there used to be, and it's just not worth it. Like, I've cleared this room a little bit, and it doesn't feel like, it's not just about efficiency. It's also about the flow. The flow of this room is terrible. There is no flow. There's just too many mobs to group up in some areas. The travel distance isn't a nice circle, semicircle. It's janky. And there's only 1 Elten, and I already know the trash numbers are going to be terrible because of how janky the pools are. This is not a good room right now. It will need to completely change. So I'll quickly show you guys like how I'd pull it. So the way I'd be pulling it is I'd be coming obviously from a specific direction. Is I'd grab this side, right? I grab as, like, this is now not enough like to do by itself. So I'd grab as much as I can from this side, which is pretty much just 1 mob. And then there's like 3-4 mobs just left over doing nothing. You'd clear these guys out. You'd come down here. I'd come down here. I'd grab this side. I'd bring it over to this section here. I'd clear it out. And then I'd grab the 4 mobs or 5 mobs that are up there, and there's usually like 2 mobs left over here. So they're all subpar pools, and I'd be over clearing. So then I'd have this long walk of going back over here to then clear this room out. And then you'd have to come back down here. It's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't flow. It doesn't feel good. And the numbers will not be good the way it is right now. And there only being 1 Elten, like, this room is dead. It's been stripped way too hard. So I'd recommend just putting the 4 pools into this room. If you want anyone to take this room seriously, there has to be first of all 2 Eltens in it. So even if you don't want to do what I'm saying now, you need to add another Elten. Like, just add this Elten back right here, okay? But the way I'd like to see it is I'd like to see 4 pools in this room itself, and make it like the make it similar to the 4 Elten room, where not all the pools are at max capacity, because obviously it's a very small room, and then you'd be getting a lot more trash, right? So go look back at the suggestions I made to the 4 Elten room. When you've made those adjustments and changes to the 4 Elten room, just basically copy and paste the number of mobs that were there and spread them out into 4 pools in this room here. So the way that the 4 pools would flow nicely would be 1 pool over here, 1 pool over here with the Elten, obviously. Please bring back the bloody Elten. 3 Eltens is just not enough. Sorry, 1 Elten is just not enough compared to the 3 that we used to have. Anyway, that's enough of ranting about Eltens. So 1 pool there, 1 pool here, 1 pool here, and then either 1 pool over here or 1 pool up here. But obviously, if you add back the Elten over there, don't add back an Elten here, because then it would be over buffing the room. So either add back the Elten here or add back the Elten, the first one that I asked you. But this needs to be 4 pools in this room, and it also needs to have 2 Eltens. This way you trash, and if you just copy and paste the number of mobs that were in the 4 Elten room and you put it here, you'd have very similar numbers across the board. Inside rotation, I was getting around 3k trash per hour as well. 2,900 to 3,000 trash per hour, so it wasn't quite on the higher spectrum. So the way I talk about it, right? So the 4 Elten, which used to be 7 Elten, was the best trash per hour. And then this room was very similar to the three tanko room, slightly better in trash numbers. So I'd hit 3000 trash a bit more in side rotation than I'd used to hit it in the 3 tanko room. Because it's obviously, as you can see, it's just a smaller room, it's faster to get around. I think that was the main reason why. Now, 5 Elten is just never going to be a thing. So the old 5 Elten rotation, if you knew what that was, I'm not going to go too in depth about it. Because of the increased respawn rates, even if you were to add 5, like even if there still was 5 Eltens, it wouldn't be worth doing. So I'll just mention there used to be a 5 Elten rotation in the past. It no longer exists now, and it doesn't need to exist. If you were to make these changes, 5 Elten would be redundant anyway because of the way you've increased the mob respawn rate. So now let's go into main. Now main is another slightly more difficult one if you want to talk about, depending on what side of main rotation you're talking about. On this side, honestly, I haven't found a good way of integrating this side of main into the pools that I do. All my pools are basically on the other side of this wall, minus this one pack over here. So this one pack is included in my pools over there that I'll be showing the numbers for. I have not found a good way of integrating this side of main into the rotation, or doing a rotation on this side of the wall of main, because 1, there's no Elten, so that's no good, and 2, what's it called? It's just the densities are a bit spread out and a bit jank, so the numbers won't be as good either. So what you can do, if you really are adamant about reducing mobs increases efficiency, just like, you know, get rid of some random mobs in the packs, like get rid of this demol over here, get rid of like maybe this, like a demol over here, get rid of another demol over here. Like, you don't need these mobs on this side. Like if it makes it more efficient, you can't make a good pool on the other side of main rotation. So yeah, you could probably just take away some mobs on the other side to increase the efficiency, like the performance of the game, since that was the point of your optimization patch. And then over here, this is useless. Like if you don't want it to feel empty, fine, but like maybe cut 1 or 2 demols. Maybe just have the 2 car bolter in the corner and cut those 2 mobs if you don't want it to seem empty. Or, in my opinion, just get rid of all the mobs and put a wall over here so we can't see it. It doesn't look empty if you can't see it, right? This is just a useless pack over here. Anyway, so let me cut to how I'd clear main, and then we'll talk about numbers. Okay, so in terms of clearing main rotation, this is how I've been doing it, and I'm having a lot of success. Is pulling all these mobs to this Elten. And then we come over here. Pull these mobs like so. And then the next room is where we got some issues. I'll talk about how I cleared the room in terms of the spreadsheet numbers, but let me just talk about the issues with this room right now so I don't have to come back. Now, the issue we have is there's 1 too many mobs in this room, first of all. So let me show you that. So, as you can see, I can no longer aggro this guy over here, no matter what I do, because there's 1 too many mobs in this room. So I'm just going to make the first suggestion right now. Just get rid of this guy right here. Get rid of him. And preferably, what I'd like to see is for this 2 card to get rid of as well, and another one of the Kalkishas that used to be in this room to get added back, or maybe the Vodkan. I'm pretty sure there used to be a Vodkan around here. I might be wrong, but it's definitely missing at least a Kalkisha or a Vodkan somewhere. So get rid of the mob in the corner over there, that 2 card Bormol over there, and get rid of this Bolton. Wait, sorry, not to, yeah, sorry, that Bolton over there, and get rid of the Bolton that used to be up here. And add back a Kalkisha to this room, so you'd be clearing it at max efficiency. But normally how I'd be clearing this room is I'd come in, I tested trying to aggro killing both Boltons. The numbers just didn't work that great. I found a lot more success just ignoring that Bolton when I came in. Aggro everything to the corner over there and clear it out, which means when I finish pulling, there'd be 2 Boltons left over, and I'll just go to the next pool. Now, another issue we have is if you do aggro this guy, and you still have the other guy aggroed, it's going to cause a problem in this next pool, because this next pool is at max capacity, which is great. But if you have, so we lost the aggro when we came in this room. Every extra Bolton is still aggro to you when you come in this room is one less mob that you pull from that pack over there, which then just slows you down because it takes a second for either that guy to de-aggro and then you to aggro this mob over, or you just completely ignore that mob completely and just move on to the next pack. So it messes with the numbers. So I'd highly recommend changing that room over there to be at max capacity with only 1 Bolton in there, so the pools don't affect the next area, that don't affect this pool here. This is actually, this rotation is pretty good. You're almost at max of capacity for all the mobs, but the reason the numbers are going to be slightly bit less is because of the jank pool over there that affects the pool over here. And it's a slightly longer pool, so after we cleared this mob right here, there was a bit of a wait time between the pools. So there's a bit of a wait time between getting all this grouped up and bringing down there. And let me just keep going with the changes. Get rid of this Bolton. This Bolton doesn't need to be here. To help increase the trash numbers a little bit. I know I haven't showed you the spreadsheet, but I will show you in just a minute. So to increase the trash numbers, just add 1 more Kalkisha down here. So get rid of that Bolton, add another Kalkisha, so then this would still be at max capacity. And then we talked about that room over there. I would like to personally see 2 Eltens be put back in this rotation. This would literally make all the rooms in Hystria very similar if you were to do that. Because right now, even though if you were to make those other changes, if you were to keep 1 Elten in this rotation, it would cause problems. If you are able to change this Bolton into Elten, this would be ideal. Because if you were to add the Elten over here to bring the 2 Eltens back, it would still cause problems. Because you won't be able to aggro these guys to that Elten. So if you want, you can add the Elten back here, and then people have to choose whether or not they want trash or the Elten. So it's like, oh, I want to kill the Elten, so I sacrifice some trash, or I want the trash, so I'll sacrifice the Elten. You can give the choice to the players. An important note that I missed when showing this rotation: if you were to replace this Elten, what you could do is just also replace the mobs that used to be around the Elten. There was more Demos, there was a Vodkan, and there was more Kalkishas. So if you would literally to put this Elten back and all the mobs, so we don't have to pull from the mobs that are further away because they can't aggro far enough, to bring this Elten to max capacity, that would also be a fix to the issue. I'd personally prefer to see the Elten get put over here. This would be the best spot for the Elten in my opinion, if you're able to just change 1 mob. Because all the other changes I've been talking about, I've been literally just talking about adding and replacing mobs that used to exist in the game before. But if you do have the ability to completely change 1 mob into a mob that had never previously been, that would be the change I've made. And the reason I've talked about these changes, because this room is nerfed compared to what it used to be as well. So let me bring up the numbers now. So here we go, here's main rotation here. As you can see, we're roughly getting 2,650 trash. So I never really, so here's a little caveat. I never kept track of main rotation in the past. Main rotation was a rotation I did not like to grind because I just didn't like it as much as the other rotations. There was only 2 Eltens in it, which was an issue for me personally. That's why I didn't like grinding this room. I'd grind side rotation, 7 Elten, Black Shard, and 3 Tanko room over this rotation every single time if they were available on Arsha. I only came to main rotations if none of those rotations were available. And I didn't used to grind it. I mean, I did every now and again, but just in terms, I'm talking about feelings now, so this isn't going to be exact science and exact numbers that I can prove. I felt like in terms of how main rotation pulled, it didn't feel any different to like the 3 Tanko room. So I think I'd be getting around 2,900, 3,000 trash in this room as well. But I can't guarantee that was the case. But if you were to make all the changes to these rooms to take it back to what they used to be, then this main rotation would obviously be lacking, because obviously with all the advice that I've been giving is to push all these rooms to be around 2,900 to 3,000 trash per hour, so it'd be what it used to be. So you'd have to also touch this room up as well to be able to compete with the other rooms that we've talked about. Now, like I've already said, I've already given the suggestions that I think would make this room bring it up to that 2,900 to 3,000 trash. With these changes, I honestly don't know if it would be enough of a buff to get there, or if it would be... I don't think it would be over buffed with all the changes if you were to add them. I don't think I'd be pulling more than 3,000 trash in any of the rooms that I've been talking about. I don't know if it's also enough to bring these rooms back to what they used to be either. I'm not sure. But I do know if you were to make these changes that I'm suggesting, that it will make these pools better. So let me cut back to the game right now. So one more time, just in terms of changes, you basically, all 4 of these pools need to be at max capacity. So I'm not sure if this, I think this room's at max, this pool here is at max capacity, but it's pretty hard. No, I'm pretty sure it is. So if I was just to do a quick test. Yeah, it is. So this pool's at max capacity, so it doesn't need to change. Again, I'm just going to go through the changes one more time, now that we've seen the spreadsheet. Get rid of that Bolton. Add an extra Kalkeisha somewhere. One of the Kalkeishas that have been taken away, because I'm pretty sure one of them have. So then this pool comes to max capacity. The reason we want all the pools to come to max capacity, because this pool right here takes a while longer to do than every other rotations and all their pools. Just because of the manner of this, just the way this plays out. And then over here, get rid of this Bolton. Get rid of that Bolton. Add back one of the Kalkeishas or a Vodkin into this room. So we're not having issues coming into this room, and then keep this exactly the same as it is now. I would also like to see this be changed to an Elten, because I still won't be grinding here, because it's just going to be an Elten nerf if you add the Eltens back into the other rooms. So change this to an Elten if you can, or if you want to give the choice to the players, add the Elten back here where it used to be, and then the players can choose to reduce their trash per hour to go for more Elten kills, or to come over here and just kill more of these guys to increase their trash per hour. So you can give that choice to the players if you want. If you're not able to change that Bolton into Elten, then do it this way, but I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that, and personally I'd like to see the first change be made, that Bolton be changed into the Elten. And that is basically it. That is all the suggestions I have for Hystria. I know it's a very long video, but I've spent a very long time testing these rooms. It's been more than 20 hours, because that's just 20 hours I've done with the loot scroll. I've also spent a number of hours in each room optimizing the pools. So keep that in mind. I've done a lot of testing. I've had a lot of experience. I know I'm more geared than other players, but other classes at higher APs do clear better than Wizard. Not all of them, but most of, well, no, a number of them do. And the longer this game is out, the more people are going to be catching up to where I am. right now in terms of the speed of clearing mobs. So in looking at the long run, these changes is definitely going to help. The way history is now, I don't know for people with lower APs. I'm assuming it's worse for them because I don't see as many people in Hystria as I used to. Like I said, I lived and breathed Hystria for a lot. I've been living and breathing Hystria for quite a number of months, and just by looking at the marketplace, you can tell that there's less people coming to Hystria because there's less Tongue-Rad earrings available. Because more Tongue-Rad earrings hit the market because of Hystria than Archmans, mainly because of the fact that Hystria has a better drop rate for black shards. The prices are going up on Tongue-Rad earrings. There's less Tongue-Rad earrings available. The prices are going to be going up on Tongue-Rad necklaces. There's no Tongue-Rad necklaces available. So that can already tell you the other people that are coming here all have less gear than me, minus one person, which is Senpai 1. Everyone else that comes here has less gear than me, and if they're not grinding here anymore, that's telling me that they've been affected even worse than I've been affected. Because I still, with the way the changes are, find Hystria to be viable with my AP. So keep that in consideration. If you want to see what other people's opinions are, please go to the link that I've put to you guys to this video on my YouTube channel. And for any of my subscribers or people watching this video, if you've made it this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Leave me a like. It will help the video out. And just be civil in the discussions. Give constructive feedback to the developers to help them be able to make Hystria as good as it used to be. Thank you very much for spending the time. For everyone that's watched this video, I hope I do see some changes coming to Hystria soon, because in my opinion, the game really is going to need it. And I'll see you guys later.